which, like Hippocrates, is a Greek name. And Hippocrates is the institute is named after, excuse me, and his name ends in an ES, and my name, Nicozisis, ends in an IS. And all of the Greek people whose names ended in IS and ES came from the island of Kos, so I'm actually distantly related to Hippocrates. And I never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So here come the crazy vegans. We're not crazy, we're just here from the future. And so I'm here to talk to you about, and by the way, I'm not an employee of Hippocrates either, like the doctor guessed. I am a graduate of Hippocrates from the Health Educator program. And I am a nutrition, veganic, organic activist. That's my new phrase that I've come up with. And that's basically a fancy phrase for the science of plant nutrition. And we're going to cover, I think we're going to cover a lot of ground on the science of plant nutrition. And I'm really honored to be here to share that with you. If Brian Clement, the co-director with his wife, wasn't in Orlando at the conference, he would be standing here. So it's really an honor to be here with you, to share this information with you. We're going to talk about vegan. But by the way, how do you know if someone's a vegan? Don't worry, they're going to tell you. Right? So I'm here to talk to you about not just the diet, which we have the most nutritious food this side of heaven right over there. Not just the diet, but not just the lifestyle, but more than that, it's mankind's next step. Not just for the micro reason, our own personal reasons, but because it's healthy for society, it's healthy for sustainability, it's healthy for spiritual reasons and ethical reasons. But we don't have time for all that today. We're going to talk about mostly the science of plant nutrition from a nutritional standpoint. Does that sound like a good idea today? Okay. Food is medicine and food is poison. That's the theme. That's basically what we're talking about. And this idea is not new. It goes back to thousands of years to the age of Hippocrates, who lived about 2,500 years ago. And he said, let medicine be your food and let food be your medicine. If you had to really sum it all up about this beautiful campus that we're on here, it boils down to that. Let medicine be your food and let food be your medicine. But in the last 100 years, with patent chemicals known as prescription drugs and procedures, boy, oh boy, haven't we gotten away from that. And so what the vegan movement promises is to really go back to nature. And it's not some hippie new age boulder dash, okay? It's chemistry, not fantasy. And we're going to talk about that right now. So many would have you think that genes are the determining role in whether you or not you get sick. But I'm here to tell you folks, the best people in the world who study this stuff say it's epigenetics, not genetics, in determining whether or not you get sick. See, the fellows who discovered the genome, the father of the genome path, he's a doctor in France, and he says that genes play a very small role in whether or not you get sick, perhaps less than 5%. It's almost hard to believe compared to what we're being told by doctors in the mainstream media. You see, when you go to a doctor and you fill out the questionnaire and they ask you, did your father have this disease, or what diseases have your relatives had? The reason why that is because they lived most likely the same way that you're living. And that's why the doctors don't know that, but that's the reason why they're asking that. They just don't even know it. You see, what's epigenetics? Epigenetics is gene expression as a result of diet and lifestyle, and of course the external environment. The idea is, because good genes don't save you and bad genes don't do you in, the idea is to let the sleeping dog lie. Don't allow the bad genes to express themselves. So when we eat a veganic, organic, highly nutritious diet, we're not awakening the bad genes. So then I want to ask the question here at the bottom, is heart disease hereditary or diabetes hereditary? Ladies and gentlemen, folks, bad genes don't run in the family. Sausage and peppers runs in the family. Breast cancer need not necessarily run in the family, but a diet high in animal fat and wearing a petrochemical synthetic material against your body 18 hours a day, I'm sorry to say that that runs in the family. Since genes are only a 3 to 5% predictor of disease, the rest are sadly caused by our lifestyle choices, our diet. You see, when it comes to nutrition, genes are like the gun, and bad nutrition pulls the trigger. Let's look at it more closely. For example, cancer almost didn't exist 100 years ago. It's not because we're living longer. Don't believe the lie that people that they say that we're living longer. If you actually look at it statistically speaking, you look at the records, we're only living about 8 years longer over a 130-year period when you statistically control for child mortality and the invention of penicillin. By the way, that's a patent chemical, that's a drug. I'm not here to say that all drugs or modern medicine is all bad. I certainly don't want to go back to the way it was 100 years ago, do you? So we need to learn what we want to learn and improve on the distortions and the problems in our system. And I believe when it comes to topics, pick any topic, there's only one truth. And I believe that veganic, organic nutrition is the one truth that's going to improve humanity. So it's not just me saying this. Dr. Hans Deal, who will actually be here tomorrow as the keynote speaker at 7 p.m., he has this a nutritional center in Loma Linda, California, and he's an expert. He's highly credentialed. And he says the most important medical advance in the last 20 years is not this drug or that wonderful procedure or even a trauma advancement that helps people live if they go into the emergency room. Is that disease is really not a disease, it's a lifestyle choice from nutrition. He says that's the most important medical advancement in the last 20 years. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who we'll talk about a little further in depth, he was head of general surgery at the Cleveland Clinic, did thousands of operations, and he did studies on heart disease, and what he found and what he concluded is that heart disease is reversible, haltable, and resolvable with a switch to a plant-based diet. And even more recently, he's in his 80s now, he's retired from doing surgery, he travels around doing lectures about heart disease. And you know what he says about heart disease when it comes to diet? It's a toothless paper tiger. So if you go to www.toothlesspapertiger.org, or tigers, plural, there's nothing there. It's just when I heard him say that, I thought that was cool, so I thought I would reserve the domain name, and haven't done anything with it yet. So, Dr. Colin Campbell. How many of you have heard of Dr. Colin Campbell? He wrote the book, The China Study, he is the top nutritionist in the world, essentially, and he wrote a book called The China Study, which we'll talk about even further. He establishes the relationship between animal protein and cancer and disease. So what's the state of our union right now in the United States? We are a sick country. I'm sure that's not news to anybody. The leading cause of death in the United States is cardiovascular disease, followed by cancer and diabetes. There are 4,000 heart attacks per day. In 1928, there was only one per town. In 1900, American seats were 17 inches wide, and now today the standard width is 24 inches wide. So 70% of our population is either overweight or obese. We try to cure these problems with pills or medical procedures, but we know that we're treating symptoms, and we know that's not the answer. Furthermore, every year in the United States alone, there's 500,000 heart attacks per year. And about 40% of the grafted vessels fail within 18 months because folks need to change their lifestyle. There's 1 million stents each year costing about $35,000 each, and the stent is counterindicated unless it's inserted within 24 hours of a heart attack. And statin drugs lower cholesterol, but there's no risk that there's no evidence they actually lower the risk of a heart attack. As a matter of fact, statin drugs have some of the most insidious side effects of any prescription drug, including blocking CoQ10. Did you know that? And if we wanted to give someone a heart attack, we would block their CoQ10. That would be the surefire way to give them a heart attack. And that's exactly what Lipitor and statin drugs do. The average doctor exam is 7 minutes long. This leads to prescriptive promiscuity. Did you know there's 250,000 deaths per year from prescription drugs? 36,000 of them are from antidepressant drugs, which is really a crime of humanity. Do you know that the antidepressant drugs, the placebo, is 80% as effective as the actual antidepressant drug? And a lawyer sued the government, FDA, Freedom of Information Act. He got the data, and he uncovered this information, and really nothing's being done about it because antidepressant drugs are still a big seller, but they have all the side effects that you don't want, including suicide. So 84% of healthcare is spent on chronic disease. We spend twice as much on healthcare as anybody else, but we're only 50th in life expectancy. So what's the cost? It's expensive to be sick, right? Right there, if you add it up, is about $1 trillion of lifestyle disease. Heart disease, 400 million, diabetes, 300 billion, obesity, 200, cancers, 125 billion, gallbladder removal surgery. Now that's not the fourth one, but I put it there because at the cost of 15 billion annual, 500,000 people every year will get their gallbladder removed because they're complaining of pain. But did you know that there's a 100% cure rate with gallbladder pain if you just find out what the food ailment is, what the food allergy is? Usually it's eggs. And that's medical doctor James C. Brenneman, who is the authority. He wrote the encyclopedia of food allergies, and he really did some great work with that. So we've got some issues here. We've got longevity of life. How many folks have heard of the rule of 6? Well, the rule of 6 is that any organism will live 6 or 7 times past its maturity age. So humans, our genetic potential really is 120 to 140. So if we're living 70 or 80, we're really not doing very well by that marker. So we want to find ways to improve that. But we also have a quality of life issue. We've got folks who are on prescription pills by middle age. Then we're getting hip replacements, we're getting open heart surgery, we're going into nursing homes, and so we've got a quality of life issue. But we're also got a societal moral hazard. Now those who know me know I'm kind of, not only am I a vegan activist, but I'm also a political activist of sorts. But I promised I wouldn't get into that tonight. But the societal moral hazard is as we've established, we've got about $1 trillion worth of essentially lifestyle disease that's really almost all preventable. And the government right now is about a 60% single payer system. And I'll give you an exact example. Last November, on the cover of the New York Times, on the front page was an article on a 560-pound man. And I just happened to read it. I usually don't read the newspaper, but I happened to walk by a newspaper that day. And they were talking about how Medicare and Social Security are paying his hospital bills. And then they had a quote from this 560-pound man, and he said, "I really don't like being here because the food is bland." So I thought, isn't that nice? The productive taxpayers, like many of us, like everyone here, have to pay for his bad lifestyle choice. And I'm not here to preach about politics, but that's the classic societal moral hazard, and I think it's worth pointing out. So what's the culprit? The culprit is what we affectionately term the standard American diet, the SAD diet. How many have heard of the standard American diet used? So I'm happy, for those who haven't heard, to bring that into the vernacular this afternoon in this room, because that's really what the culprit is. And it's not just the dollar menu at McDonald's. It's also the foodie. If you're a foodie, like I am a foodie, but I used to be a bad foodie and going to Morton Steakhouse and cream spinach and big thick steaks and those kind of things. It's your meat, your chicken, your fish. It's cookies, cakes, pies, cheese, processed food, sugar, and so on. It's the standard American diet is the culprit. So last month I was driving to Tampa, and there's not a whole lot in between here and Tampa, but there is a truck stop or two. So I stopped and I took a picture of Jimmy's Sitco truck stop, and I noticed cheesesteak, sub, and then gizzards. I wasn't sure what gizzards was, And so I looked it up and I found out what gizzards was. So I went inside the restaurant, and then, so this is what they're offering, and then this is what they're promising, and this is what they're offering. So I think really what they're doing is, since it's a truck stop, they're taking the used truck tires and they're grinding them up, they're rolling them in flour, and they're frying it, and this is what they're promising, but this is what they're getting. And this is just a little humor here. Monsanto Hungry Man Frankenfood, microwavable for added carcinogens. So, in the China study by Dr. Colin Campbell, and by the way, he's head of nutrition at Cornell University, but he and his son have a family business where they made a film called Forks Over Knives. Have you heard of Forks Over Knives? So if you haven't, please go on Amazon and buy the DVD Forks Over Knives. But the good news is, I was just at a conference and we had a private screening of their sequel film called Plant Pure Nation. And it's going to air, it's going to be in the theaters on July 4th. July 4th, and I highly recommend that you see Pure Plant Nation. But behind the film, behind the documentary, is a serious science book called The China Study. It's about 700 pages long. It's not the easiest read in the world, but it's actually written for lay people, so that lay people could actually understand what's going on. And in the China Study, which spans decades of research, they established with hundreds of bona fide peer-reviewed studies that kind of all come together in this book, really presented nicely, that the standard American diet of beef, chicken, fish, processed food, eggs, dairy, and so on, are directly responsible for these mainstream diseases, which include autoimmune diseases, brain diseases, cancer, diabetes, eye diseases, heart and kidney disease, obesity, kidney stones, and osteoporosis. So let's break it down a little bit. Killer meat. Well, unfortunately, meat is a form of animal fat that's clogging our arteries. Meat has cholesterol. Did you know that the liver, the body, makes all the cholesterol that you need? So that any exogenous, meaning outside source of cholesterol, is more than you need. And guess what happens to that cholesterol? We've already discussed how heart disease is the #1 killer in the United States. It's also the #1 disease. It sticks to the cardiovascular system. It clogs up our arteries and creates heart disease, which, by the way, it doesn't always just happen that you live a long life and you have, need to have open heart surgery. Often it happens real quick with a stroke, because a piece of the plaque breaks off and then it gets lodged somewhere, and then you can go pretty quickly, almost immediately, through a stroke, unfortunately. But in addition to cholesterol, meat is acid forming. We call that acidosis. We're going to talk more about that with dairy, which is also very acid forming. But meat encourages IGF-1 hormone production in your body, which is directly linked to prostate and breast cancer. In addition, they feed these the livestock antibiotics, which makes us sick. It's creating super bugs, and which means that the antibiotic supply isn't working on us. But they also feed them hormones. And as an aside, the average child in the United States hits puberty at around 9 years old now. But did you know in rural China, the people hit puberty, the ladies hit puberty between 16 and 18. That's because we're taking in the hormone from another animal. And it's very unnatural. Not only is it unnatural, but there are studies that show that people that hit puberty early also die early. So it's not good for longevity. Killer dairy. In the picture is the pus from the udders of the animal. I don't need to get too graphic. If I wanted to be graphic, actually, we'd show slides and pictures from the slaughterhouse. We're not going to do that. But this is the pus from an animal, and in order to alleviate the pus in the product that they serve you, they feed a lot of antibiotic to the animal. And this creates problems. It is another form of animal fat that clogs our arteries. And we think to ourselves, well, we're drinking skim milk or half and half, but they're taking out the fat on one end of the factory, and then they're delivering it to the other end of the factory to make the cheese that we love. And we are addicted to cheese. You know, cheese has a chemical called mesomorphine. Mesomorphine is so that the calf will want more of the mother's cow's milk. And as the name implies, it's very addictive. And scientists, there's Every major food manufacturer or food restaurant chain has scientists in their corporate headquarters that know this stuff, and they want to manipulate our palates so that we're basically hooked on their product. 100 years ago, the average American, I mean, there's records on this stuff, it's not hard to find. The average American ate 3 pounds of cheese a year, and now we're up to 33 pounds of cheese a year. And if I don't eat any cheese, that means some poor sap is eating 66 pounds. I'd like to meet that guy. I would like to meet that guy. But there's 2 more things about dairy that's incredible. It's actually a fraud. It's one of the biggest frauds of modern life. And that is, who's heard the phrase, milk does the body good. Milk's strong for your bones, and so on. Well, the truth is, milk is acid forming. We talked about that with meat, remember? And milk is acid forming, creates an acidosis condition. And the body is an incredible thing. The body has a cosmic, God-given way to heal itself. And in order to, the body wants to stay neutral. We all know that. So in order to neutralize the acid condition, the body goes into the bones and actually leaches the calcium and magnesium from the bones. And people are literally pissing away their skeleton. So milk and dairy and meat actually lead to bone failure and osteoporosis. In addition, last but not least, milk has the protein called casein. And casein, established in the China study or anywhere else you want to find peer-reviewed, bona fide research, is literally an on and off switch for cancer in laboratory animals. So let's talk about killer fish. Many would have you believe that fish is a healthy alternative to meat and chicken. Excuse me. But unfortunately, there's universal contamination of our lakes, streams, and oceans with industrial toxins. There's a really good book by the director of Hippocrates called Killer Fish. That's actually the cover of the book. And whether we're talking about the Puget Sound in Washington, or the lakes and streams in Florida, the Atlantic Ocean, or even the Sea of Japan, there are industrial toxins of lead and mercury. And this wreaks havoc on our system. Do you know that 10% of the people who are diagnosed with multiple sclerosis don't have multiple sclerosis? They actually have heavy metals poisoning. And if you love sushi bars like the way I used to love sushi bars, and if you eat a lot of fish, I promise you, you've got copious amounts of industrial toxins and heavy metal poisoning, including lead and mercury. Now the good news is, there's a great medical doctor here in Palm Beach Gardens called Charles Honor, Dr. Charles Honor, and if you, for $80, an $80 metals test, and he can get you tested for metals, and there's actually an antidote, a prescription antidote, a 19-day pill that you can actually chelate the heavy metals from your body, which is what I did a few years ago. So in addition, fish has lipid fats. So as soon as the fish is caught and it gets removed from its environment, namely the ocean, it starts to putrefy. And the lipid fats actually turn carcinogenic because of this. And fish oil, if you're taking fish oil, the evidence suggests it's not a good idea, because fish oil in studies, more recent studies, is shown to cause heart attack and stroke. But in addition, it really also has animal fat. It's another form of animal fat that clogs our arteries. Did you know that shellfish has 4 times the cholesterol as meat? Now farmed fish is even worse, because of the close proximity of the fish to each other. They have to feed the fish antibiotics, which then bioaccumulates into our body, and then they have to feed the fish pink dye, because the fish are so sickly they're turning gray and black. And in order to make it presentable on your plate, they feed the dye, and now it looks nice and pink. But this of course is bad news too. It's a toxin. The dye is a toxin. So I'm here to suggest to you, whether it's beef or fish or chicken, but with fish especially, let's get our omega-3 or any other nutrient you think you're getting from animal products. Let's get it from the same place that the animals do. Where is that? We get it from, that's right, we get it from the plants. In this case, we can get it from flax. You're exactly right. So here are some excellent sources of omega-3. We cut out the fish, chia seed or chia oil, hemp seed or hemp oil, flax seed or hemp oil, algae, and also walnuts. And to prove it to you, here is a picture. Those who know me know I love scuba diving, and I took a picture of this parrotfish off the coast of Belize in the Mesoamerican Reef, and that parrotfish is chomping on some algae to get his omega-3. So there, the proof is right there. So let's talk a little philosophy. What is karma? Karma is like a sin. It's the law of cause and effect. And billions of years of evolution suggest that we're violating the harmonic laws of nature by eating the flesh of another animal and byproducts from another animal. To sum it up, folks, we kill the animals and the animals kill us. In addition, did you know, as a side note, we're the only animal out of 8, or the only life form. I don't believe we're animals. I think we're more than that. But we are a life form. We're the only life form out of 8 million that cooks its food. So we have proof of concept, and we're going to discuss more now about solutions. How we can arrest, halt, reverse, and resolve all-cause diseases with a switch to a plant-based diet. Guess where that is? That's right here. It's like at the mall with the little arrow, you are here. Yeah? We are right there. So Hippocrates Health Educator is where we're at, and it has its name, as I discussed, for the reasons that I discussed. And it has been in operation for almost 60 years. It's on 50 beautiful acres. If you came here today for the first time and just came here, there's 50 more acres to discover, especially for the guests who are here in the 3-week life transformation program. 400,000 people have gone through the life transformation program, and thousands of people have gone through the Health Educator program, which I'm one of the lucky ones. I went through the Health Educator program, and this is me 4 years ago. This is heavier, Phil, and I like this picture because to the right of me is my godson and my nephew, Elias Nicozisis, another good Greek name. And it's a juxtaposition, it's a contrast between the birthright of a child who's born happy, healthy, and soft, and along the way we have free will, and along the way we lose our way a little bit. And that leads me to another concept, which is a rhetorical question. And the thing about rhetorical questions is that I only have the answer, but I want to ask a rhetorical question. What's the number one problem in the human race, the human condition? Actually, she knows. Karen knows. The number one problem in the human condition is lack of self-realization, not living up to our potential. And we all fall short of the glory of God. We all have things we want to work on. But the truth is, in this case, if you're carrying around a 50-pound gunny sack on your body, it's very hard to be all that you can be. It's very hard to live out your full potential. So now we're going to talk about the solutions. Plants to the rescue. Talked about all the problems, but now we're going to talk about solutions. And I'd like to read to you a quote that I wish that I made up, but I didn't. The quote comes from Brian Clement, who's the director here. Decades of evidence lead to one concrete conclusion. Organic plant-based nutrition is the single most important factor in the prevention and reversal of all forms of cancer and all causes of disease. Phytochemical elements far supersede even the most ambitious attempts science has made. What we're talking about here is God's pharmacy. You see, in the last 100 years, we've been on this idea that patent chemicals made in the laboratory are the answer. But because of all the side effects, and when the doctor treats you, does he say, come back and I want to see you that you've been, resolved, that your situation's been resolved? No, you come back and you have the same exact problem that you had before. You just need another slip of paper to get more pills. So these are just some of the sicknesses addressed by phytochemicals. We're not going to go through all of them. I actually have here on this table a handout with this slide and several other slides that I'd be happy to share with you. Yeah, when you go home, you can research it, but we'll just name them all. Alzheimer's disease, arthritis, asthma, ADHD, cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, obesity, pulmonary disease, osteoporosis, Parkinson's disease, and stroke. And it's not just Phil Nicozisis standing up here with some new age balderdash. There's very highly credentialed people who have dedicated their whole life to the science of plant nutrition. Medical doctors, PhDs, researchers, scientists. And we've talked about Colin Campbell. He's in his 80s. He travels with his son speaking on this. He's head of nutrition at Cornell. Caldwell Esselstyn. You can see Hippocrates is here. Ann Wigmore, right here to the right. We're actually in Ann Wigmore Hall. So Caldwell Esselstyn, formerly head of general surgery at Cleveland Clinic, in 1987, he conducted a study that was published in 5, 12, 16, and 20-year benchmarks. And with statistical and clinical significance, he was able to demonstrate that you can reverse and resolve heart disease with a switch to a plant-based diet. The best part is that patients can control their health going forward. And that's what I like about it. You see, it's very hard to overeat with plants. Very hard to overeat this way. And furthermore, no one ever blamed a health problem on a plant. Did you ever notice that? So what is vegan? We already know how you know if someone is vegan, because don't worry, they'll tell you, right? Matter of fact, I'm so vegan, I don't even watch Kevin Bacon movies. Vegan is nothing from an animal, whether it's a byproduct or their meat. But at Hippocrates, as Catherine Littman alluded to, we don't cook the food. Why don't we cook the food? Because we want to keep HOPE, hope, in our food. And HOPE is the acronym that stands for hormones, oxygen, phytonutrients, and enzymes. The truth is, when you cook the food, you kill the hope. So hormones, for example, hormones are the signals that talk to the cells, that it basically makes us human. So mushrooms have a lot of vitamin D, for example. Oxygen is very important for digestion. It's very important for life, obviously. When you walk into a kitchen and you smell a meal cooking and it smells good, that's the smell of the oxygen leaving the food. The truth is, if we save that oxygen and we put it in our bodies, we'd be a lot better off. You know, if you take a vegan who cooks 100% of his food versus a raw vegan who doesn't cook his food, there's a significant weight difference in that individual. Phytonutrients, phytochemicals. Phyto stands for plant. And that's God's pharmacy. That's, by the way, that's the hospitalization of the future. That's where it's at. You know, we're going to look back on this, I think, in our lifetimes. We're going to look back at today's point in time with the medical procedures going on right now. They're going to liken it to bloodletting. They're going to liken it to leeches. Because the phytochemicals, that's where the promise is. And we're already there. We're already starting to figure out that the phytonutrients in plants are what's going to strengthen the immune system, address chronic problems, address catastrophic problems, or keep us from getting sick in the first place. But enzymes are very important. Enzymes are electricity. If somebody drops over with a heart attack, God forbid, what do they do in the emergency room? They shock you. Enzymes are in live food. Live food, over there on that buffet, has frequency. It's living. And so the enzymes are the carts that carry the nutrition through the cells and out of the body. So we don't want to cook the food so we can keep our hope in the food. Now we can't talk about vegan and eating a plant-based diet without talking about sprouts. See, there's too many sickly-looking vegans out there that don't look healthy. I agree. People tell me, you know, this person looks all pale and pasty. I agree. The reason is, and they don't look, you know, and the people on the meat, the animal-based diet, they don't look so hot either. And the reason is because of malnutrition, the one word malnutrition. So sprouts are a superfood that's going to save the world. Why are they going to save the world? Because they're super, super cheap. you can solve world hunger overnight with sprouts. And if the foundations and the Bill Gates of the world would actually get their act together and figure that out, they could go into a village, drop a sack of sprouts in the village, and maybe come back next winter. And they would be, these people in second and third world will have better nutrition than their dictators and their rulers. It's going to be like bottom-up nutrition. Okay, you heard of trickle-down economics? This will be bottom-up nutrition, where they're actually going to eventually outsmart and outlive their dictatorships that they're ruled under, which unfortunately most of the world lives under. So let's get into it a little more specifically. The sprout over there on that buffet, some of them are up to 40 times more nutritious than the best vegetable that you would plant in your backyard and grow in perfectly organic soil, and then take it out, wash it, and eat it. That's still about 40 times more inferior than some of those sprouts over there. So they're very nutritious. Here's an example of the sprouts. You've got azuki beans, fenugreek, mung beans, lentils, buckwheat sprouts, pea sprouts, sunflower bean sprouts, garlic sprouts, radish sprouts. We don't have the full complement there today. The reason why, usually when you come here, it's open to the public for lunch and dinner. It's $25 for an organic, veganic meal that's the most nutritious meal this side of heaven. The reason why it's a little scaled down today is because it's fasting day. Wednesdays are fasting day where the guests in the program only drink vegetable juice, non-sugary vegetable juice. But when you come for lunch or dinner on a normal day, you'll get a much better complement of food. So for example, one serving of sprouted buckwheat and sprouted flax has protein, fiber, calcium, iron, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, vitamin B6, folate, phosphorus, manganese, zinc, selenium, copper, manganese. So here's a chart of sprouts. We won't go through them all, but just take the top slide. Azuki beans. Let's go there. You've got your fiber. You've got about a third of the fiber you need in a day. Look at the protein. 22 grams. Chicken, a serving of chicken has about 17. And look, your iron, nearly twice the iron of ground beef. So where do you get your protein from? That's the question that us vegans get asked a lot. And people just don't know. But here in the picture you can see is Germany's strongest man. And he's obviously a bodybuilder. He has the world's log lifting record. But it's not just him. There is something out there known as the vegan edge. When people are on vegan, if I wanted to beat you in a competition, the one thing I would do for sure is give you an inferior diet and malnourish you, because I would win with nutrition. And one of the reasons why they say the vegans, besides all the nutrition that you get, is the nitric oxide that's in the vegetables that gives a certain energetic effect. So nitric oxide is something that I read recently. So do we really need to get our protein from meat? So on the left you can see 6.4 grams from a serving of beef versus almost double the amount there at broccoli. So that's the good news. The bad news? Twice the farts. So people tell me, I like eating this way, but it's a little gassy. I say, well, take your pick, death or farts. It's really nice, very simple equation. So protein is, well, there is an overemphasis of protein in the modern diet, and that's primarily the meat industry has tried to convince us that we need to eat more of their product. Did you know that breast milk has only 1.5% protein? And look how the baby doubles and triples in size. So let's cut out the middleman. Let's get our protein from the same place that the animals do. As we discussed, let's get it from the plants. I was loved to go to Polo in Wellington, which finished up last month, and I love to go see the horses. And I'm always marveling at how the horses have such a nice, long, and lean muscle tone. They have beautiful skin, they have beautiful, beautiful mane, and they are on, of course, 100% plant-based diet. Now, unfortunately, when we eat a lot of protein, animal-based protein, it's not so bad with plant protein. the animal-based protein, when we eat a lot, it doesn't get stored in the body. The body has to get rid of it right away. So it turns into uric acid. That's where the acidosis situation comes from. But then in the China study, there's 3 peer-reviewed studies that I learned about in the China study where it shows that there's irreversible kidney damage from too much animal protein. Of course, the casein protein found in dairy is an on and off switch for cancer. So let's talk about juicing. Juicing is medicine. And so we don't just eat highly nutritious, veganic, organic lifestyle diet. We also juice every day. And the reason why we juice is because it's medicine. How and why is it medicine? It's like that because I can take pounds and I can put it into cups. You see, on the left here, if I said, please eat that table full of vegetables, you wouldn't get very far. But I can juice that and I can put it into cups and we can drink it throughout the day. And I can get loads and loads and loads of phytonutrients, which will help lower inflammation, which will either keep us from getting sick in the first place or help address chronic or catastrophic diseases. But in addition to juicing, how many had a wheatgrass shot today? Okay. How many have ever had wheatgrass? All right, that's a good show of hands. So wheatgrass is the original superfood. And the reason why it's superfood, and superfood is a marketing term that's kind of been overused and misused, but it's the original one. And would you believe it has 93 of the 104 minerals found in soil? Now let me let that sink in a little bit. 93 of the 104 minerals found in soil. So you've got tremendous nutrition in just 2 ounces worth of wheatgrass. That's 50% protein. It's high in chlorophyll. It's molecularly very close to blood. So it's got detoxifying benefits for the blood and the kidneys. It has anti-cancer properties. It helps boost the immune system. And I drink it every day. We should drink it every day to help create our green shield. Here's a chart of wheatgrass. Here's your protein. Wheatgrass, a serving has 25 grams versus, look at chicken, it's 17. And then a lot of the meat eaters will cling to their addiction to meat. They say, well, we need to get our B12. Well, here's 0.8 micrograms versus 0.3 in chicken. So is all this extreme? I hear it all the time. People say, well, this is just too hard or it's just too extreme. But I like what Caldwell Esselstyn says. He says some people think that the plant-based whole foods diet is extreme, but each year 500,000 people will have a vein taken from their leg and their chest cracked open and sewn onto their coronary artery. And some people would call that extreme. So here's a doctor-patient scenario here, where it's something similar to that, where the doctor says you have 2 choices. We can take a vein from your leg, crack your chest open, sew it onto your coronary artery at a cost of over $100,000 with about a 2-month recovery time. Or we could put you on a vegan diet. And he says, the patient says, a vegan diet, gee, doc, that sounds pretty extreme. So I'm here to suggest to you today, I guess we've covered a lot of ground, and I hope you found it useful and helpful. But I want to plant the seed that what is normal is abnormal. In our modern life, what's normal is abnormal. The standard American diet is very normal. Cutting off limbs for diabetes, which is not a disease, it's a lifestyle choice. And even 20% of type 1 diabetics will get cured. Dr. Gabriel Cousins, Rabbi Dr. Gabriel Cousins, MD, has a special program in Arizona on curing diabetes with a plants-only lifestyle. And so what's normal is abnormal. In the handout, which you could receive, is my food list. So if you feel so inspired, you could run to the new Whole Foods here on Palm Beach Lakes or the one in Wellington. And it's basically a food list of everything that you can buy from the grocery store. And here's some cow milk alternatives. It includes coconut milk, almond milk, hemp milk, rice milk, and these are delicious. If you were to put them against dairy milk, I think you would find this just as satisfying. Also in the handout is my daily regimen, which includes my diet, which is 80% raw, cold pressed juices, wheatgrassing, supplements, daily exercise, which includes a regular yoga practice, Pilates, and I do love to stay active with my scuba diving. And here's a reading list, internet and documentary list, which includes the DVDs and websites. These 2 websites will make you an expert on nutrition within a few months. NutritionFacts.org and TheRealTruthAboutHealth.com. Some vegan sources. Of course, we're here at Hippocrates. They're open for lunch and dinner for their buffet. And also Whole Foods is an excellent source. Amazon, Got Sprouts actually will deliver wheatgrass by the pound and any sprout you want to your door. So let's wrap it up here. Let's talk a little philosophy. There is no more important freedom than health freedom. When we are sick, we are not free. And when we don't feel freedom, we are not happy. Everything that we're talking about boils down to 3 principles. Number 1, all life comes from the sun. The reason why plants exist is because the sun had something to do with it. The sun has something to do with photosynthesis. And when we eat the plants, especially when we eat living sprouts, which are germinated in water and are literally growing when you eat them, it's like getting a sunlight transfusion. But number 2, all health centers around the immune system. And this is probably the most important thing that we talked about this afternoon. All health centers around the immune system. The reason why we tell you to eat this way, to eat an organic, veganic diet, lifestyle, is because it boosts the immune system. The reason why we tell you to move your body around and exercise is because it boosts the immune system. The reason why they say don't wear plastic clothes, like the yoga clothes that are filled with petrochemical, like Lululemon clothes, is because that leaches into the body and it freaks the immune system out. So I'm eating non-food over here, I'm eating dead animal carcass over here, I'm wearing plastic clothes over there, the immune system's freaking out, and no wonder we're getting sick. Do you know that anybody who's 50 or over has cancer in their body? It's the difference between a person who has cancer and who doesn't have cancer is the immune system. Do you get that? The difference between a person who gets cancer and doesn't is one person's immune system kept the cancer at bay, and another's did not keep the cancer at bay. Number 3, my favorite, do the things that are good for you and don't do the things that are bad for you. It's kind of simple, but not easy. So in closing, the raw living food, organic, veganic lifestyle gives me and many people joy. But the standard American diet, unfortunately, it gives people pleasure. And pleasure can never be satisfied. That's why we're always trying to get more pleasure. But the vegan lifestyle brings joy. And joy, it lasts forever. It comes from the heart. And just like right now, it can be shared. Thank you very much. I guess, does anyone have questions? Yeah. And we have a microphone here.
I'm just curious how much fruits do you eat daily? What's the percentage of the intake of the fruits?
Me personally, I eat almost no fruit. If you notice, on the buffet here today or any day, there will be no fruit. And the reason why is because fruit has sugar. And I know that there's some different opinions. There's some books that you can read that say fruit may be okay because, like any other nutritional concept, the sugar exists within the cofactors of the plant, and somehow that makes it okay. But the directors here at Hippocrates are very adamant about the fact that dope is dope. Whether you're talking agave, whether you're talking refined sugar, whether you're talking fruit, it's still in the laboratory when you break it down, it's sugar. And so, but the truth is, if someone's healthy, they recommend up to 20% of your diet, by weight, not by imagination, by weight, can be fruit. Anybody else? There's a man in the back there.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Welcome, thank you.
Thank you. My question is about medical marijuana, hemp, and where we're going forward. It seems like a pretty rapid ascension that marijuana is being considered a pretty good, useful tool that's been otherwise undermined for years. What's your view?
Well, let me start by saying I'm not credentialed to even opine on that, but let me give you my personal view. My personal view is that marijuana is treating symptoms. You know, someone who's nauseous from chemo, God bless them, you know, it probably is going to help them. And it may help them, you know, want to eat more and things like that. I don't think it cures anything. I'm more interested in how do we not get sick in the first place? I'm more interested in, you know, how do we try to possibly reverse and heal catastrophic and chronic problems. So I think it's really a mask. But what I like about it, though, it's you can't overdose with it. And as we discussed, 250,000 people a year die from prescription pills. And it's actually, the medical industry itself kills almost 500,000 people a year. So I like marijuana for those reasons, but I think people are using it as a loophole to maybe use it. But you know, like I said, I'm not credentialed to talk about it more than my own personal opinion. Anybody else? There's a nice lady right here. Any green sweater?
If this food is good for our bodies, why are we getting gassy from it?
Well, I can tell you what Brian Clemens says. He says that if you've eaten incorrectly for 40 decades and all of a sudden you start eating the right way, it's kind of like if I tied your arm to your side of your body. If I tied your arm to the side of your body for 40 years and then I took the bandages off, you wouldn't use your arm very well. So it does get better.
One other kind of, wow, my voice sounds like my mother's.
Don't worry, we're all turning into our parents. It's inevitable.
Oh my gosh.
It's inevitable. Right? The gentleman right there? I know you too, sorry. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for talking about the food as medicine and medicine as food.
Thank you.
I want to ask you about the soil that you're talking about. We have here in Florida, we have sand. And most of us go with their plastic and try to get the food from the store. And there's tons of toxins and organic. Does Hippocrates have a program to teach people how to touch the soil, grow their own? And I know there's something about the soil I talk about in this magazine, and I really appreciate that. So give us some kind of what do you think about the soil?
Organic soil is the way to go. It's hard to come by, but it is possible. You have to do your research. It can be found locally, and from what I know, the closer you can be to where you live, the better. Number one, you can control the source. You can actually go there and know the people that you're buying from. But it's also, you know, when you buy food from Mexico, they pick it before it's even ripe. So that has problems because a lot of times by the time you eat that fruit, it's acidic, and so that creates problems. So thank you for the question. Oh, this lady here was waiting. Yes.
Ma'am, I wanted to address you. This is just my personal opinion, but if I were you, I would desperately seek to find somebody who does hypnotherapy, because they can really help you to use things and to move forward and retain the learnings and be able to grow from it. And it can make a whole difference in your life.
Thank you.
And if you call and talk to them, find the one that you bond with over the phone and then make your appointment. It can make a huge difference for you.
The lady in the white right there?
You know, because of this gentleman's question regarding the soil and stuff, what about...
Hold on until you get the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please. Actually, down there you go.
As this man had mentioned about the soil, it just made me think about, you know, how is hydroponics, you know, as another form of growing and keeping it more local.
I'm not
Any
sure about
thoughts?
it. I don't know much about
No.
that. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll research it.
Yeah?
It's okay.
May
Anybody
I?
know if you, how about
We're
this
gonna go
one?
there.
Oh,
Equities.
Yes, sir.
I just had some questions. When we were doing the flaxseed thing a little while ago, I was just had a question when I was doing research myself. Do you know anything about the ALA content and how it's broken down and what is available from flaxseed as far as the DHA and the EPA, the omega-3s that are so essential in those? So you recommend not going with fish liver oil, which is also something I'm a benefit of. Have you heard about blue green algae and maybe like finding your omega-3s from that? Because I know that flaxseed, just in the last like 10 years, there's new evidence suggesting that flaxseed might not be the best way to get your omega-3s, so just be aware that you have to take a little bit more than they recommend, because only like 10% is broken down from the ALA.
Did you mention algae? Blue green algae, yes.
Yeah.
I touched on it, but he's referring to blue-green algae, which, this algae existed before oxygen. And so what he's talking about is something that existed before anything, including oxygen, and it's something that you can actually buy from a company. You can go to Nutrition Smart here. I actually get mine online, and it's an algae, and the algae are very important for all kinds of vitamins, minerals, protein, but also your omega-3.
Yeah,
so
it's
highly
really careful
recommended.
about the algae too, because the only thing about the algae is like clementite, where all this great Lugian algae comes from. There's a bacteria that's often found to contaminate the blue-green algae. That's why it used to be the big kick and it was pulled. The manufacturers that make the blue-green algae make sure they're testing every batch before they ship it out. It makes it a little more expensive, but you gotta be really careful. It's like there's a toxin in it, it's super, super deadly.
Anybody else? Two more questions. Go, gentleman there in the blue shirt.
So it was just a minor thing here, but what place does exercise have, and where does that because I know a lot of people, because I've been part of health spots, that really don't eat that well, but they're tremendous exercisers, they live 80s, 90s. So where is that in connection to?
It's huge. Toward the end I mentioned about the immune system. All health centers around the immune system. And the reason why we tell you to exercise is because it boosts the immune system. If you did all of the things that we're talking about here, but you were somehow a vegan couch potato, it wouldn't work. So diet is, it's the yin and the yang. It's all part of it, and it's absolutely required for optimal health and wellness. Period. You're exactly right. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, I think we've got one more question here. This nice lady right here. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for a wonderful lecture. I really enjoyed it and I learned a lot.
It's my pleasure.
Can you give me any kind of guidance as to whether a person with ulcerative colitis is a good candidate for a raw vegetable vegan diet?
Absolutely. I can't get into the particulars of that. I just know that there are people with that problem who come here and resolve that problem, because it's an inflammatory condition, and the alkaline diet of the vegan diet, a highly nutritious vegan diet, resolves that. Maybe one more question. Anybody else? I thought there was one.